Hi guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on your locations. It's been a long time that I have published my videos. So again, I thought of publishing some videos and sharing my knowledge with you all guys. So welcome back to Dev's software tutorial. So today what we're going to discuss is we're going to discuss about BDD and what is the meaning of BDD, why BDD is used in industry nowadays, and I have around 2.5 plus of years of experience in BDD, and I've been using BDD in terms of contributing to various organizations. And I have started using BDD from past 2018, and it's been an awesome learning BDD. So let's begin. So what we're going to do is I have prepared some test cases and we'll start directly with a PPT, and after that particular PPT I'll walk you through how BDD uh, is followed in your project or in your organization, and how we can change our mindset to write BDD or to implement BDD. So let's talk about some agenda today. So today's agenda is what are BDD and ATDD. So we have this terminology. So what is BDD? In terminology, we call it as behavior driven development, and ATDD we call it as an acceptance test driven development. Both are similar, but we have some distinguished point or some distinguished feature between the two. We'll drill down and we'll discuss them in a brief way, in a detailed way as well. We'll know what is Gherkin. We'll talk about what is cucumber, and we'll talk about what is a step definition. So let's begin in terms of the PPT. So first, the objective of this PPT is make you through what is BDD, what is ADD, what is cucumber, what is step definition, why we do follow BDD. And after this particular PPT, after this particular deck, I'll walk you through how to write BDD, how to change your mindset so that I can make you think what is necessary to implement BDD. So what is BDD, guys? See, previously what I used to do is, so I'm from administration background, I'm from testing background, automation testing background I'm from, and we use BDD generally to build a bridge between all my stakeholders. All my stakeholders represents all my project specific stakeholders or my client specific stakeholders. So why we implement BDD? We implement BDD because to club all my developers, all my testers, all my business analysts, all my product owners, all my scrum masters, and my management team to be in a same roof or under the same roof. That's how we implement BDD. Reason being, BDD is known as behavior driven development, that you can already see on my deck. But why we follow BDD? Because BDD is specifically followed in agile development. Okay, and it helps to improve collaboration in terms of business scenarios, collaboration in terms of understanding use cases, collaboration in terms of understanding testing scenarios, collaboration in terms of understanding development scenarios. What are the features that we're developing? Okay, so how it comes is, or how do we implement is, what is the thinking behind BDD approach or ATDD approaches? Previously we used to have all the scenarios in terms of my user stories, because BDD is strictly followed in agile environment. We cannot implement BDD in waterfall model. Reason being, it takes a huge time to implement BDD. And waterfall model follows in a simple BRS FRS format. BRS is business requirement specification. You will get BRS, and from that BRS will prepare an FRS, that is functional requirement specification, and based on that we'll write all your test cases, and we'll go ahead, we'll do the test design, we'll execute. That's how it follows. But in BDD, what is the benefit of BDD is you will focus on user stories, and those user stories will be written in form of use cases functionalities. Okay, so what are my use cases? Use cases are my features. Okay, suppose my client or my product owner has given me a requirement of building a web page, and we'll have 15 fields. So I'll have 15 use cases, and based on those 15 use cases, again I'll have some positive use case. I'll again have some negative use cases. So what are these things? These things are high level scenarios for me, correct? But in BDD, your mindset should be different in terms of, okay, fine, I have got all these features, and now what I have to do is I have to implement my BDD approach to write all those features in a methodological way. Fine. So I'll go with the PPT. Let's talk about the PPT. It's behavior driven development is an agile methodology or agile development technique that improves collaboration between technical and non-technical members of the team. Fine. Because I've already discussed and I've already conveyed that it's a clubbing, or it's collaboration of all my stakeholders, all my POs, all my scrum masters, all my developers, all my testers, all my management team. So what I'm doing is I am making them understand what I'm working on. I'm making them understand what are the scenarios I'm developing, what are the scenarios that I'm testing. Fine? Because previously what used to happen, we used to write formal test cases. Okay, and those formal test cases would be like this. Let me show you. This would be the formal test cases. See, user login validation. This is a very basic simple example that I've taken. Fine. So in Excel sheet we used to write test name, then test description. See, verify the user is able to log into the application using valid username and password. This is a happy pathway. This is a positive scenario that I've taken. I have a precondition as well. So what is the precondition? User has entered a correct URL to go to the landing page of the application. And I can have separate preconditions as well. I'll have various preconditions represents the database connection is working fine. The backend web services is working fine. I have a status 200 okay. So I have not dealt with all those preconditions. This is a very generic format so that the objective remains the same, because today's objective is not to drill down what are the possibility scenario or what are the possible negative scenarios. Okay, today's objective is to know what BDD is all about, how we can implement BDD, and how we can think like BDD, because we have to think in that manner to write good scenarios in BDD and to understand BDD, why we are writing BDD and what is the change, where is the change. So I have to make you guys think how a BDD tester or how a BDD developer will think. Okay, so here it goes. So previously again we used to write step 1, user enters valid username and password, and we have expected result. Say user should enter valid username and password, and actual result would be user enters valid username and password successfully. And if there is any mismatch between expected and actual, then we used to log a defect. That's how the testing team goes ahead and does the job. But in terms of BDD, what we are doing is, see, we are doing a different format altogether. So let me tell you what is this particular tool. This particular tool is known as Visual Studio Code. How do I go ahead and do this thing? See, I was doing some R&D in terms of BDD scenarios for you all guys. See, we have to go ahead and Google a Visual Studio Code. How to go ahead and do that? You have to write like this: Visual Studio Code. This is a simple Google I'm using, and this is the thing. You will get this thing, a Visual Studio Code. It's an IDE we call it as, and you have to click on this thing, download Visual Studio Code. Okay, this is how it looks like. And if for Windows guys, you can click on Windows. For Mac guys, you can click on Mac. Okay, this is how it looks like. Fine, cool. Now, going ahead, this is what the tool is all about. Now, this is available in form of .zip format. It will be downloaded in your local local computer, in your local C drive or D drive, whatever path you have mentioned, and you have to extract that particular zip file. The moment you extract, you have to install. So it doesn't go ahead and install. So what you have to do is, it's like Eclipse IDE. Again, Visual Studio Code is an IDE, and this is how it looks like. Simple, you just have to extract. You don't need to install. You just have to extract. Simple. Just we do as Eclipse IDE. Okay. In Eclipse, what we do, we go ahead, we download that particular zip file, we extract, we start working. Simple. So this is how it looks like. Now, how do I get this extension enabled? So you will get a simple thing like this. Okay, as soon as you download and as soon as you open, you have to come on this particular thing. See, it tells us extension. Click on this thing and please go ahead and download this particular extension. It's called Cucumber Gherkin Full Support. Okay, you can note it down. It's Cucumber Gherkin Full Support extension. And as I've already downloaded this thing, see, it says this extension is enabled globally. This is how it looks like. Okay, so the moment you go ahead and enable this particular extension, it's a plugin. Okay, the moment you go ahead and enable this plugin, what you have to do is you have to restart the application. Just close it from here. Simple. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll make you understand what this is all about. Okay, let's go ahead to the PPT, and after that we'll take it forward. Okay, so this is what BDD is all about. Okay, we have to make use of the scenarios based on those use cases. So what is BDD? BDD is writing a simple test case using some keyword, using some parsing language in an English format. We'll go ahead, we'll talk about all those keywords, we'll go ahead and talk about all those way of implementing BDD. But this is on a very high level, we'll focus on the use cases. So in BDD, in one single line, BDD talks about focusing on use cases, and BDD talks about collaborating between all my technical and non-technical business stakeholders. Okay, and it's a approach, or it's a framework by which we can implement, or by which we can implement by which you can mention in this way, by which we can go ahead and implement it in an agile methodology, so that the outcome becomes very familiar to technical and non-technical members. This is what the definition would be in a single line. The outcome is very positive, or it would be very fruitful to technical as well as non-technical members. Okay, so this is what it should be in your mind. Why BDD? Because it should bring a positive outcome. It should build a bridge between my technical and non-technical stakeholders. Okay, so this is the requirement of BDD. Now what is ATDD? ATDD is acceptance stress driven development. Okay, ATDD talks about requirement. Okay, definitely BDD also talks about requirement, but in BDD what we do is we breaks the requirement in terms of use cases. Okay, and what we do is we write all those use cases as a scenarios. Okay, but in terms of acceptance ATDD, we talk about the requirement first. Okay, so ATDD will speak about, like, we'll go ahead, we'll create the test cases, those test cases will fail, and after that we'll implement something, we'll develop something, and again we'll make it pass. That's what ATDD is talking about. Okay, but ATDD focuses on requirements, BDD focuses on use cases. Okay, on a very high level use cases, and based on this high level use cases we'll make scenarios. That's the basic difference. Now when we implement BDD, there is a separate parser. Okay, I repeat, there is a separate parser, we call it as, like we used to in Selenium we use JSON parser. Okay, so in a similar way we use Gherkin. What is Gherkin? Gherkin is a language, okay, that Cucumber uses to define test cases. Okay, now another question is, what is Cucumber? So Cucumber is a framework. Okay, like we use hybrid framework, we use data driven framework. Okay, we use page object model. So again, page object model is an approach you can mention, but I'm talking in terms of Selenium now. Reason being, I belong from automation testing background. So as we all know that Cucumber is a framework. Okay, and what Cucumber does, it supports the Gherkin language. Okay, it supports those Gherkin keywords. It helps you to maintain a bridge between your Cucumber test cases, between your Gherkin test cases I would mention, and your step definition. So we'll have three components. I'll make you understand in a separate video that what are the three components that I'm talking about. So one component would be my feature file, another component would be my test runner, another component would be my step definition. Okay, so what test runner is doing, this test runner is acting as a conjunction, or it is acting as a bridge between my step definition and my feature file. We'll go ahead, we'll drill down all those scenarios as well, because if I go ahead and drill down now, then it will be a very awkward for you all guys to understand, because what The objective of this particular video is, this is the first video of BDD, and we have to implement BDD thinking. Okay, we have to know how to write BDD. Then we'll go ahead and write step definition. Then we'll go ahead and make it possible. Okay, so this video is all about how to implement BDD. We'll make 3 to 4 videos, and based on that, we'll take it forward. Okay, so what is Gherkin? Gherkin is a language that Cucumber uses to define test cases. And here in Gherkin, we have separate keywords. We have given, we have when, we have then, we have and, we have but, we have background, we have feature. There are many keywords. Okay, and this is non-technical. This is purely non-technical. So as I was discussing, why BDD? To bridge technical and non-technical members. Simple. It will build a bridge. It will build a communication way. It will build a channel between my non-technical and technical members. And that is why we are implementing BDD. So if your project manager asks you, fine, we have to implement BDD. Your first question should be, okay, so why we are implementing BDD? Because it will build a bridge among all my technical and non-technical members. Fine. It is human readable, and definitely it is unambiguous requirements. Reason being, we call it as a BRDSL, that is business readable. Okay, BRDSL we call it as a, like, business readable requirements language, or business readable specification language. That's why we call it as, that is another name of Gherkin, BRDSL, business readable specific language, so that your business can go ahead and read it. Your business is a product owner, and most of the product owner would be non-technical, because they would go ahead and they would give you the requirement. So it is business readable description language, correct? We call it as a BRDSL. Now, going forward, what is Gherkin? Okay, as I have already mentioned, it's a parser, we call it as. Okay, these are the keywords that we use: given, when, and then. There are many keywords, but these are the 4 keywords that we generally focus on to write the test cases, or to write the use cases, or to write the high level scenarios, or to write the feature file. Okay, we'll go ahead, see, given, when, then, but, and. So what is the format? Again, I'll go back here. So as you can see, we have maintained as given is a precondition, when is an action, then we used as assertion, and but we can definitely use as a wildcard. But is generally used for negative assertion. But this is my theoretical knowledge. By seeing this particular deck, you all will be able to understand, okay, fine, so these are my keywords, but how to use it? So let us go ahead and think in that way, so that I can make you understand how to implement it. See, this is the simple feature file, or this is a simple scenario that I've taken. So at first you have to write feature. This is a simple keyword. Okay, what is feature? Feature would be a high level functionality, or you can mention it as a bird's view functionality, in a very short way, in a very crisp way. Okay, so this is what is all about feature. What I'm going to test today, or what I'm going to develop today, what is that functionality on a very high level? User login validation, or user login functionality. You can write it as user login functionality as well, no issue. Okay, you can write it like this as well. This as well you can write user login functionality. Fine, it works good. Okay, user login functionality, it looks good. So after feature, what you have to do is you have to write like this. See, feature colon user login functionality. Okay, after that, what you have to write? Scenario. What is scenario? Scenario is again a keyword. Scenario would be like test summary or test description. See, here I have written as test name, like user login validation. Here I have written as test description. In a simple Excel format, we used to write like this. Okay, verify that user is able to log in to the application using valid username and password. In a similar way, we'll write the scenario. Fine, verify that user is able to log into the application using valid username and password. This would be my scenario. So far what we have learned what is feature. Feature is a very high level test name or development name of that particular feature, of or the particular use case, and where I'm getting those use cases, these are my use cases. See, these are my high level scenarios that I was talking about. Reason being, BDD will focus on use cases. BDD will focus on high level scenarios. I'll break down all those high level scenarios in Gherkin format. This particular format is known as Gherkin format. Why Gherkin? Reason being, Gherkin is used as a parser and it supports these keywords. Okay, and there is a framework called as Cucumber. How do I go ahead and enable this plugin? I'll go ahead and click on extension. See, Cucumber Gherkin full support. This is how it looks like. Okay, now we have talked about feature, we have talked about scenario. Now how to implement this particular thing, step 1, step 2, step 3. You remember in an Excel sheet we used to write steps in one column, then actual, expected, result after that. Okay, then the result would be like pass or fail. If the actual doesn't uh, match with the expected result, then we would go ahead and make the test case fail. Simple. In automation we do the same thing. We use assertions in terms of Selenium. Fine. Now in step 1, what I have written, user enters valid username and password. Fine. So here all these steps would be defined in given, when, then condition. Okay, these are all my keywords. How to implement? So given is my precondition. Let me open another notepad so that I can make you understand in a better way. Given is my precondition, guys. Okay. This is a precondition, and here I have to write in simple English language so that my business stakeholders can understand. Fine. So while implementing BDD, you always have to take care of this thing. You have to use simple English language. See, I have used simple English language, guys. Given user is on the landing page of the application, I have not written anything which is related to technical in terms of backend. Like I can use my technical terms as well, right? That whether I'm getting status 200, okay. If I go ahead and send a request, okay, in response I'll get 200, okay, from backend. So this particular login functionality has around 10 to 15 scenarios. Fine. I have database scenarios, I have web service scenarios, I have UI scenarios. Fine. But you have to keep in mind this is a simple English language, and that's how you write BDD, so that your non-technical members, your product owners, your business management is able to understand. That is the objective of implementing BDD. It looks very simple, but yes, it does comes with practice. You need practice to think in this way. Fine. So given is used as a precondition of any test cases or test scenarios, I would mention, because each and everything are my scenarios only. This is my one scenario. This is one use case. That's how you have to go ahead and think. When? What is when? When is my action? We call it as action represents does. That means when user does this, okay? When user does this, this is how you have to relate, or this is how you have to think, that when my user does this, this will happen. Okay, this is known as, like, the outcome is known as this thing. We call it as an outcome, or you can call it as expected result, because in testing or in unit testing, anything that you mention, we call then as an expected result. Fine. So now you guys are able to relate with this thing, because here we used to write step 1 expected result, after that actual result, after that we used to write the whether this thing has passed or whether this thing has failed. Simple. This is a simple test case. Here we are implementing this simple test case into BDD format. Fine. What is given? Given is my precondition of any test cases. Suppose I need to execute one login functionality. So what I have to do? I have to navigate to that particular URL. Fine. I have to be on the home page of that particular URL so that I can see my username and password button highlighted, and I have a text box to enter my username and password. That's what the functionality is. If I log into Facebook, if I log into Amazon, if I log into Flipkart, what is the opening page? That opening page you will have username and password blank. correct? So that is the precondition. So that's why I have written it as given. Given is a precondition of any test cases or of any scenarios or for any use cases. It should start with given. So if you say that find Deb, if I go ahead and write given here, no, it won't work. Reason being, there is a particular format. What is that particular format? Given, when, then. People call it as GWT. The moment you remember BDD, we call it as GWT, given, when, then. Now, this is my given. What is when? When is my action. So when user does this is how you have to think. When user does this, then it will happen like this. Fine. When I go to that place, then I'll be able to explore more about that places. So that particular thing is when. When is my action? It's a verb. Okay. When user does this. And what is then? Then it will happen. So then is my expected result. Okay. So in my test case, what I have to do, I have to match this particular expected result with my actual. So here what we're implementing in BDD then defines my validation, because in test cases we have validation point as well. Fine. In testing we have validation, and there are we call it as a validation point as well. Fine. There are there can be one validation point, there can be two validation point, there can be three validation point, and based on this validation point I'll define the complexity of the test cases. This is how it follows. So that will be based on your best practice, how you're going to implement that, how many validation point you're going to use in a particular test case. Fine. Because this is my one test case, and what I'm valid so how many validation point I have two validation point. What are those? Username and password. So here the complexity of the test case is very minimal, because I am validating only two. What are the two things I'm validating? Username and password. Because if the username and password are valid, okay, then I'll be able to log in successfully. You can mention fine there are three validation point, because if the login button doesn't work, then what happens? So on a very high level you can mention that yes, there are three validation point, but we have not mentioned anything in terms of login button, because we have mentioned the validation of login functionality using username and password. Fine. These are very basic simple scenarios. Fine. So I have mentioned as given user is on the landing page of the application. Fine. When user enters valid username and user enters valid password. Now another new keyword comes and. So what is and? And is used. Fine. I'll write it here. And is used as a conjunction. What is conjunction? Correct. So what is conjunction? Conjunction is bridge between two sentence. That's what conjunction. Guys, do bear with my spelling. Okay. So what is and? And is used as a conjunction. Suppose you have multiple when. Okay. Multiple when you have. Multiple when represents multiple actions you have. Suppose you have to go to uh, one place, and from that place you have to go to another place, another lane you have to follow. Suppose I have to come here. See, I have to come here when user enters valid username and user enters valid password. So with this thing, I have to perform this activity as well. Fine. How to go ahead and bridge this two statement? I'm using and keyword for that. And user clicks on login button. So see, there are three actions that I'm combining. So when you use and, there is a specific reason. When will you use and? To combine actions. Okay, or navigations. Gherkin always talks about actions, navigations, and validations. Okay, so what are the things that I'll do? In Gherkin, it always talks about actions, navigations, and validations. Where are my actions? These are my actions. This can act as a navigation as well. Fine, navigation in terms of where to go. I have to go here so that I can enter my username. I have to go here so that I can enter my password. I have to go to this particular login button. So these are all, in another word, these are all my navigations. Correct? I can write here user navigates, correct? User navigates to login. User navigates, suppose there is one scenario, user navigates to user object and clicks on login button. This also works. Suppose there is one application, you have to navigate to this particular object and you have to click on login button. This also works. After you enter valid username and password, there is a mouse over. You can do that. You can mention this thing. User navigates to user object and clicks on login button. You can mention and here as well. This is a sentence, but here and see everything that I'm writing is the first letter is capital. See, the first alphabet is capital. This is what it all about. If I go ahead and click and enter a small letter C, it gives a white color. So this is again what I have used is this is a particular IDE, Visual Studio Code, which supports BDD. If I go ahead and enable this particular extension, see, the extension is Cucumber Gherkin full support. So this is what is all about. I have given, I have when, I have and. So why and? And is used to combine all my actions or my navigations. This is why you use and. And what is then? Then the system displays login successful message. If I click on that login button, I'll be able to see my login successful message. That's my outcome. That's my expected result. That's how the system should behave. If the system doesn't behave in that way, I log a defect. Simple. If a developer does the unit testing, he will go ahead, he'll try to fix that particular thing, why it is not logging. Whether it's a front end issue, whether it's a back end issue. Then I'll drill down to many back end issue. But this is how a simple BDD thinking is done. I have feature, which defines high level functionality. I have scenarios, which is simple like a test description. What I'm testing, what I'm developing, what is that particular feature, what is the use case. This is my use case. Verify that user is able to log into the application using valid username and password. Fine. Given user is on the landing page of the application. What is given? Given is a precondition. What is when? When is my action? I can have many actions. And see, I have many actions here. I have three actions. When user enters valid username and user enters valid password. So this is acting as a combining. This is acting as a conjunction. This is acting as a bridge. So and is used after when. Okay, there are some best practices. I'll share all those best practices as well, where you can use and. Okay, and how we can go ahead and write negative scenarios as well. Okay, we'll discuss about negative scenarios as well because this is a happy path. Fine, we'll discuss on negative scenarios as well. See, and user navigates to user object and clicks on login button. Then the system displays a login successful message. Fine, you can club these two as well. Reason being, now we have already know what is feature, what is scenario, how to write BDD. I would request you, all of you guys, please go ahead and think about BDD, how to implement BDD, because this thing wouldn't come in a single day. You have to practice. Practice makes man perfect, guys. We all are able to go ahead and practice our BDD approach, and that's how we'll be able to master this particular skill. Because say writing feature file, we call it as a feature file because the moment I go ahead and save, how do I save? The extension is dot feature. Fine. Suppose I open a notepad. Suppose this is a notepad. I'll open a notepad in front of you, and how to go ahead. Suppose I'll copy this thing and how to go ahead and make it save in terms of feature file. See, I have this thing, and how do I go ahead and save? I'll click on save as, and while saving, I'll have many format. Okay, so all files I'll mention, and I'll mention as basic dot feature. Fine, I'll click on save. So this is how it looks like. Fine, dot feature. So dot feature is the format, guys. As you can see here, basic Gherkin dot feature. So dot feature is the format. So always remember in BDD, okay, Cucumber is used as a framework. Okay, please be a spelling with me, guys, as a framework, and Gherkin is used as a parser. Okay, in English language, this is a simple English language. Okay, and what you have to do is you have to save this particular Gherkin format file into, so I'll mention it like this: you have to save this file into dot feature format. This is how it looks like, dot feature. Please do not save it in dot .json or dot .txt or any other format. Okay, or dot .csv. You should always save this particular file with dot feature. Fine. And what are the things that we'll use as a tool to implement BDD? As a tool to implement BDD, you can use VS Code. You can use Tidy Gherkin. I'll show you what Tidy Gherkin is all about. It's a Chrome plugin. Okay. You can use Notepad++. Okay. In Eclipse, if you're from automation background, guys, definitely this will help you to go ahead and automate as well. We have natural plugin, okay, that supports BDD. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind, guys. These are the things to implement BDD. And what is the test management tool that supports BDD? Test management tool that supports BDD. We have ALM Octane. This is another flavor of HPALM. Okay, we have HPLM QC, similar thing. So we have another flavor of HPLM called ALM Octane. What is ALM Octane? Supports BDD. Supports BDD. Okay, or you can mention it like this: supports Gherkin. Fine, you can mention it like this. So this is the whole scenario. This is the whole point. Fine, guys. Fine. So this knowledge is required, that where, like, what is my editor, where I'm going to practice BDD, where I'm going to implement BDD thinking. This is where you're going to implement VS Code or Tidy Gherkin. Tidy Gherkin is a Chrome plugin, or Notepad++. In Notepad++, there is an plugin that you have to install, BDD plugin you have to install. Okay, in Notepad++. The moment you install that, you will have all this format in different color, all these keywords in different color. Fine. Okay, so again we'll go back to this particular PPT and I'll make you understand. Okay, so we know, now we know what is given, what is when, what is then, but we'll discuss later on, because but is generally for negative scenarios. See, generally negative assertion, and we have already know. Fine, we'll go ahead. See what is, now we'll talk about Cucumber. What is Cucumber? See, Cucumber is open source, and everything that you're talking about is open source, guys, because as you all know that I'm a very big fan of open source. I belong from automation background, and I have another skill set as well that belongs to Salesforce. That is a different application altogether. We have uh, like we have been using it for more than 5 years now. So it's a number one CRM success platform. We'll talk about Salesforce in a different video altogether. But now we'll talk about the open source application. So I'm a very big fan of open source, and Cucumber is one of them. See, open source tool for test automation, and all the tests that we write here is in Gherkin. So again, what is Gherkin? It's a parser. It's a simple English language. Okay, we call it as BRDSL, business readable specific description language, or business readable language. Simple. Business readable language. What is business readable language? So that your business can read, your product owner can read, your non-technical members and technical members are able to correlate or relate the functionalities, relate the use cases, relate the high level scenarios. Simple. Okay, use uses regular expression to match Gherkin to a Cucumber steps. We'll talk about regular expression. In Tidy Gherkin, we have regular expression. I'll show you what is the meaning of regular expression. Cucumber step is what wraps the automation code. And Cucumber has implementation in Ruby, JRuby, Java, Groovy, JavaScript. So we'll talk about Java. Okay, how to implement it in Java. Fine. Now this is the whole thing that I was talking about. See, feature file will have dot feature extension. Always remember, guys, that you'll save this particular file in a format called dot feature. Dot feature is the extension of that particular file. File name can be anything, but the extension should be dot feature, F-E-A-T-U-R-E. Okay, I'll have feature, I'll have scenarios, and I'll have steps. So what are this thing? What is the meaning of this thing? Feature, scenarios, and steps. This thing is simple. This thing, I have feature, I have scenario, I have steps. These things are known as steps. So how many steps do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from line number 8 to line number 12, I have my steps. Cool, looks good. Now, how do I go ahead and implement tidy Gherkin? This is another thing, right? Because I've talked about step definition. See, if you go ahead and write here, tidy Gherkin Chrome plugin, you have to install that thing. Simple. That's it. See, this is the thing. I'll click on remind me later. See, tidy Gherkin, Google Chrome. Tidy Gherkin. So I have already enabled that thing, and on this particular app, I have this tidy Gherkin. If I go ahead and click on tidy Gherkin, see how it looks like. This is how it looks like. See, enter your Gherkin here, and you can have Java steps, you can have Ruby steps, you can have JavaScript steps as well. This is pretty useful. This is very useful, guys. How do I convert this thing? So first I have to use Visual Studio Code as an IDE. I'll copy the same thing, and what I'll do, I'll paste it here in this particular space. See, enter your Gherkin here. Simple copy paste. See, feature, scenario, given, when, then. How so what is the advantage of this thing? If I click on Java steps, these are my step definition. What is my step definition? See, I have how many steps? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from line number 7 to line number 11. For all these particular steps, they have created a step definition. See? So there is a separate concept of public class step definition. We'll talk more about it when we go ahead and automate all these things using Eclipse. There is a different scenario of Eclipse, and we'll talk about, because there is a different concept of test runner. Fine, we'll talk about all those things. As you can see that they have imported runner. So we'll talk about all those things, all those class and all those packages and everything. Fine. So till now, what we have learned how to write simple BDD format feature file using Gherkin keywords, and how to see all these steps in a step definition, how to observe this step definition, how to get this step definition using tidy Gherkin plugin. Tidy Gherkin is a Google plugin. You just have to enable it. Fine. So these are my things. See, and I was talking about regular expression. So these are my regular expression, guys. These are my regular expression. Okay, these are my regular expression. Okay, this is my regular expression. I have many. Okay, regular expressions are pretty helpful when you're automating your feature file into step definition. At that particular point of time, they uses the regular expression. So in username, I can use regular expression. Okay, in password I can use regular expression. So again, concept of parameterization will come, scenario outline will come. We'll talk about all those things definitely in a brief way. So this is how it looks like. This is what tidy Gherkin, and you can have Ruby steps. Okay, uh, let's see why it is not opening. I have Java, I can have Ruby, I can have JavaScript steps as well. So till now, I think Java is working fine here. Ruby steps should also work fine, but this is how it should look like. Fine. Again, we'll go back to the PPT, guys, and these are the high level scenarios, and this is how a feature file looks like. A similar way, I have taken a screenshot here, and as you can see, the feature is the create account page should have verification on all the fields. How do I go ahead? This is my scenario. Error message should become visible when I try to submit the account creation form without a name. Given, when, and see, I've used all the conjunction and. Fine. All my actions. I'm combining all my actions. I'm combining all my navigations. This is my outcome. This is my expected result. Then the missing name error on the create account page should be visible. This is my expected result. This is my validation. Fine. So how many validations I have? Two validation. Missing error name on the create account page. Or I can mention that I can have only one validation. What is that validation? Missing name error. So this is a negative scenario. See, error message should become visible. This is that particular error message. So I have only one validation here. Fine. So this is how it looks like. Fine. And see, this is a real world example that I've taken. Given I'm on the home page, when I log in as Gherkin Test and I navigate to my account. So what I've mentioned, and should contain my navigations and my actions. Where to go from this place, which place should I go in that particular application? I should go to my account page. How should I mention? And I navigate to my account page. And I click on my list element on the my account page. So I'm combining all my navigations because this particular gherkin would consist what? Would consist of navigation and validation. This is my navigation, or these are my navigation, and these are my validation. What is my validation? Validation is my expected result. Cool? Understandable? Then I should be able to, or I should be on my list page. This is my validation. Simple. I'll move ahead. We'll talk about scenario outline later on. I have taken in this PPT, so definitely we can go ahead and we can make use of time in a very productive way. So right now what I'm doing is I'm ending this particular video, and we'll discuss more about how to go ahead, how to combine, because I want you guys to go ahead and practice, and most important, please think in this manner. This is my generic way. We used to write it in an Excel format. Step 1, step 2, step 3, expected actual. But here we don't write expected actual. We write the expected actual in terms of BDD, in terms of Gherkin. Okay, same thing we are implementing here. Same thing, exactly same thing. There's a simple basic test case, but you have to make practice of this thing. How to write it in a simple way using all these keywords. That's the skill, guys. See, writing feature file itself is a skill set. What is the next step? The next step is to automate. How to automate? Using step definition. Where to automate? Using Eclipse. I use Eclipse, so definitely you can automate it using NetBeans as well. So that is next level. But first you have to write this basic feature file. This is a basic feature file. So right now I have taken an example of basic one. Later on what we'll do is we'll use data table concept as well. We'll use data driven scenarios, because this is not data driven scenarios. We should not go ahead and hard code anything, right? So to implement that approach, we'll use data table concept. Okay, we'll use scenario outline concept. There is a basic difference between scenario and scenario outline, guys. We'll talk about everything. Fine. So hope this particular video helps. Yep. So thank you all guys for sharing a valuable time.